Liberty finishes another skinny braid, her third, and lets it flop back down on her chest. She turns to Danny suddenly, says, I say something in Espanol? Sure, Danny says. She looks across the street for a few seconds, at the recycling plant, and then faces Danny again.
Me recuerdas de un chico mayor de donde soy yo. He tenido ganas de decírtelo desde el principio del verano, pero a veces me da tanta vergüenza hablar en inglés que prefiero no decir nada.
You remind me of an older boy, of where I am from. I've been wanting to tell you since summer began, but sometimes I feel embarrassed to speak in English that I prefer not to say anything at all. Daddy smiles at her and shakes his head. I wish I understood what you just said. Liberty shrugs and giggles. Is okay? No? Then it all pours out of his mouth. I'm so happy right now, being here with you in National City. I came here because sometimes I feel like a fake Mexican. And I don't want to be a fake. I want to be real. I love my dad's family, and I love the culture and the language and everything my grandma cooks and the way they live. I've always wished I was more like them, but it's twice as bad since my dad left. I wish I could tell you how pretty I think you are in Spanish, but I can't because I never learned. So Danny's mom has called Danny to let him know that she has really found where her happiness lies, and it is in her kids. So she's going to move back to San Diego, and she's going to come pick Danny up. So before she comes to pick Danny up, Uno decides to throw Danny his last kickback before taking off out of National City. They're all at Carmen's house, and they have cracked open tons of beers and chips and salsas pouring out everywhere, and they all started up a game of truth and dare. Well, Uno and Sophia were dared to go inside the room and be alone. Liberty shows up with her friend, and Danny and Liberty are dared to finally be alone to talk to each other. They both accept the dare. They go outside, and they're sitting out in front of Carmen's house. The irony is that Danny does not speak Spanish, and Liberty barely speaks any English, if any at all. So their communication is very scarce, but their like for each other is understood.
Danny develops confidence. Instead of shying away from the moment like Danny did earlier in this book, he expresses how he feels. This shows how his social confidence has increased throughout the story. He starts to understand that there is no shame at all in expressing how he feels. Liberty expresses feelings. Liberty is in the same kind of boat as Danny. She realizes she can't speak English and have a clear conversation with Danny, but that doesn't stop her from telling Danny how she actually feels. She understands that her feelings for Danny are much more important than that language barrier. Themes: power of words and overcoming. This scene represents the themes of overcoming and the power of words. Both Danny and Liberty overcame obstacles to finally communicate on a romantic level. Throughout the story up until this point, these obstacles made them sort of avoid each other. An example of that was at the drive-in theater. The power of Liberty's words pushed Danny to finally speak up for himself, even though he couldn't understand. The drive-in theater. We can compare this part of the story with the time that they went to the drive-in theater, and Danny was too scared to go in the same line as Liberty. That night, he eventually got in the same line as her, but he didn't have the guts to actually talk to her. They only made eye contact. As you can see, Danny's confidence and character has developed tremendously since then.
Liberty finished another skinny braid, her third, and let it float back down on her chest. The author has a specific choice of words. Liberty finishes another skinny braid, describes that Danny and Liberty are kind of nervous. Liberty is fidgeting, playing with her hair, maybe to distract her mind that is going 1,000 miles an hour. Finally, having a time alone with Danny to talk to him, to tell him what she has been thinking. But her not speaking English makes things kind of difficult for both of them. Still, she tries her best to let it all out, just like he did. And then it all pours out. Followed by the fragments intentionally placed by the author. I'm so happy right now, being here with you in National City. Just symbolize the urge that Danny has to speak all he has on his mind at once. He has so much to say that he cannot say much at all. So overwhelmed that the words come out sounding choppy, hurried, like he is stuck in his own thoughts and doesn't think twice before letting it all out. The author uses this to make us feel the desperation that Danny has at the moment, the inner fight he is going through. He is happy, he is overwhelmed, he is confused by his own identity, but still has the guts to let it all out. It makes us think that Danny feels safe with Liberty, maybe because she doesn't speak English at all, and that he can say all that without her understanding. It's an easy way to vent out without the consequences of doing it, but with the benefit of feeling relief, like a weight has been lifted. It's not easy for a kid having these kinds of problems, figuring himself out, but the author still made us feel what he felt, not being able to be 100% of something. He's not white, he's not Mexican, then what is he? He still doesn't know, and that is what he's figuring out. Maybe he even uses the fragment to slow down his speech so that Liberty can understand the shorter sentences.